Throughout history, there have been crimes so chilling, so baffling, that they continue to haunt the world decades after they occurred. These are not just cold cases, they're nightmares etched into public memory, with victims whose stories were never given closure and suspects who vanished into thin air. The horror isn't just in the crime itself, but in the silence that followed. No motive discovered, no culprit brought to justice. Only questions and more questions. What makes an unsolved crime truly disturbing is not just the violence involved, but the deep, unsettling sense that someone, somewhere, knows the truth and is still out there. Families are left in anguish, investigators obsess over dead-end leads, and the public becomes entangled in speculation. And with each passing year, these cases grow colder, becoming legends, conspiracy theories, and eerie cautionary tales. In this video, we'll delve into 10 of the most disturbing unsolved crimes ever recorded. Each story has been thoroughly researched and verified to ensure accuracy. We'll explore the horror, the mystery, and the lasting impact these unsolved atrocities had on society. Prepare yourself. Some of these stories are not for the faint of heart. The Hinterkaifeck Murders, Germany, 1922. On a quiet farmstead in rural Germany, 6 members of the Gruber family were found brutally murdered with a mattock, a type of pickaxe. What makes the Hinterkaifeck case especially haunting is the eerie build-up. Strange footprints in the snow leading to the house, unexplained sounds in the attic, and a newspaper from another region appearing mysteriously. Days before the murders, the family told neighbors they suspected someone was living in their attic. When the bodies were discovered, stacked neatly in the barn and the house, investigators were puzzled. There were no signs of forced entry, and bizarrely, it seemed someone had been living in the house after the murders, feeding the animals and using the fireplace. Despite interrogating dozens of suspects over the years, no one was ever charged, and the case remains open. Many theories emerged over time, from disgruntled former workers to secret lovers. One theory suggests the killer knew the layout of the house intimately, even the family themselves. The brutality of the murders, the lack of motive, and the eerie prelude to the crime have made it one of the most unsettling mysteries in Europe. To this day, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of Germany's most notorious cold cases. The farm was eventually demolished, and a memorial was erected, but the mystery still chills historians and crime enthusiasts alike. The disappearance of the Sodder children, USA, 1945. On Christmas Eve, 1945, the Sodder family home in Fayetteville, West Virginia, was engulfed in flames. George and Jenny Sodder escaped with 4 of their 10 children, but the remaining 5 were never found. Authorities initially claimed the children had perished in the fire, but no bones or remains were ever discovered in the ashes, sparking one of the strangest missing persons cases in American history. Stranger still, the Sodders began receiving bizarre clues. A woman claimed to have seen the children peering out from a car window. A photo of a young man, resembling one of the boys, was mailed anonymously years later. The family erected a billboard near their home with photos of the children and offered a reward, but leads consistently went nowhere. Suspicion also surrounded the events leading up to the fire. George Sodder had criticized Mussolini publicly, and the family received threats. The house's phone line had been cut. A ladder usually kept nearby was missing, and a witness claimed to have seen balls of fire being thrown onto the roof. These inconsistencies fueled rumors of kidnapping or even organized crime involvement. Despite decades of private investigation and national attention, the fate of the Sodder children remains unknown. The family's billboard stood for over 40 years, a haunting reminder of a Christmas tragedy that turned into an American mystery. The Zodiac Killer, USA, 1960s-70s. One of the most infamous serial killers in American history, The Zodiac Killer terrorized Northern California in the late 1960s with a string of murders and cryptic letters sent to newspapers. He claimed responsibility for at least 5 confirmed killings, though he claimed to have killed as many as 37 people. His taunting messages included ciphers, some of which have never been fully decoded. The killer's first known attack occurred in 1968, when he murdered 2 teenagers near Vallejo. Over the next 2 years, more victims were targeted, including a couple at Lake Berryessa, where he wore an executioner-style hood. He even called police from a payphone to report one of his crimes, chillingly calm and precise. What made the Zodiac case especially disturbing was his obsession with publicity and puzzles. His letters taunted police, detailed his crimes, and demanded they be published. One cipher took decades to crack, revealing a message filled with chilling narcissism but no identity. Despite numerous suspects over the years, including the heavily investigated Arthur Lee Allen, no one was ever charged. The case remains officially open in several jurisdictions. Amateur sleuths, cryptologists, and former investigators continue to chase leads. The Zodiac's identity may never be confirmed, but his chilling legacy endures in pop culture and criminal history. The Villisca Axe Murders, USA, 1912. In the summer of 1912, the Moore family and 2 young house guests were brutally murdered in their home in Villisca, Iowa. Each victim was bludgeoned to death with an axe while they slept. The killer had methodically covered mirrors and windows and left bacon wrapped in a cloth at the foot of the bed, baffling clues that offered no clear explanation. The crime scene was a horror. Blood covered the walls and ceilings, and the killer had taken time to light lamps with chimneys removed to reduce light, creating an eerie, low glow. No valuables were taken, and nothing pointed to a robbery gone wrong. The town was sent into a frenzy of fear and suspicion. Several suspects were investigated, including a traveling preacher, a state senator, and a serial killer named Henry Lee Moore, no relation to the victims. But each theory collapsed under lack of evidence or inconsistent alibis. The axe used was found at the scene, but yielded no fingerprints, unusual even for the early 1900s. To this day, the house where the murders occurred is considered one of the most haunted locations in America. The mystery of who killed the Moore family remains unsolved, but their tragic story continues to draw interest from ghost hunters and true crime investigators alike. The Isdal Woman, Norway, 1970. In November 1970, a hiker in the Isdalen Valley near Bergen, Norway, discovered the charred remains of a woman surrounded by bizarre objects, including burned paper, multiple passports, and unlabeled bottles. Her fingerprints had been sanded off, and labels were removed from her clothes. Authorities soon realized they were dealing with an international mystery, one that remains unsolved to this day. The woman's autopsy revealed she had died from a combination of carbon monoxide poisoning and sleeping pills, but the strange arrangement of her belongings suggested possible staging. Even more puzzling, her dental work and physical features suggested a European background. Yet she had traveled across multiple countries using false identities and pseudonyms. She had checked into several hotels under different names and always requested a room with a balcony. Norwegian police theorized she may have been a spy, perhaps involved in Cold War espionage, given the era's tensions. Her coded travel logs and sudden disappearance raised suspicions of intelligence activity. However, no country claimed her, and no definitive link to any known spy agency was ever established. The Isdal woman's case was reopened in recent years using forensic genealogy and isotope analysis, but her identity remains a mystery. Her unmarked grave continues to attract visitors, all wondering who she was and why she had to die in such a strange, tragic way. The Boy in the Box, USA, 1957. In a quiet part of Philadelphia, a college student stumbled upon a small cardboard box. Inside was the body of a young boy, between 4 and 6 years old, badly beaten and wrapped in a plaid blanket. No one knew who he was, and no missing child report matched his description. He became known only as the boy in the box. Authorities launched a massive investigation, distributing flyers with the boy's face and even using facial reconstructions. They scoured orphanages, hospitals, and nearby towns, hoping someone would recognize him. Yet despite these efforts, no credible leads surfaced. The case quickly became one of Philadelphia's most haunting mysteries. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged. One claimed he was the son of a foster home operator. Another involved a woman who said her mother had bought and abused the boy. But each theory was marred by inconsistencies and lack of evidence. Even modern DNA analysis failed to confirm any conclusive identity for decades. In 2022, the boy was finally identified as Joseph Augustus Zarelli through advanced genetic genealogy. However, the circumstances of his death remain unknown, and his killer has never been found. The tragedy of the boy in the box is a chilling reminder of how easily a life can vanish into silence, even in plain sight. The Black Dahlia murder, USA, 1947, perhaps one of the most sensationalized unsolved murders in American history. The Black Dahlia case revolves around Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old aspiring actress found brutally murdered in Los Angeles. Her body had been bisected and posed with surgical precision. The grotesque nature of the crime and the media frenzy that followed turned the case into a dark legend of Hollywood. The LAPD received hundreds of confessions, some genuine, most false. The press dubbed her the Black Dahlia, and details of the crime scene, including the eerie smile carved into her face, shocked the nation. Despite extensive investigation, no one was ever arrested. Numerous suspects were identified, including doctors, actors, and even police officers, but no evidence ever held up in court. In the decades that followed, the case inspired countless books, films, and theories. One of the most persistent suspects was Dr. George Hodel, a wealthy physician whose own son later accused him of the murder. Audio recordings from Hodel's home hinted at involvement, but they were never admissible in court. Today, the Black Dahlia case remains open, shrouded in myth and horror. It's a case where the gruesome details continue to fascinate and disturb, and justice still eludes a young woman whose dreams ended in violence. The Dupont de Ligonnès murders, France, 2011. In Nantes, France, the Dupont de Ligonnès family, a well-off and respected household, suddenly vanished in April 2011. Neighbors noticed no activity at their home, and police were soon called. What they found shocked the country. The bodies of the wife and 4 children were discovered buried beneath the patio, covered in lime and wrapped in tarps. The family patriarch, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès, was missing. Investigators quickly named Xavier as the prime suspect. Surveillance footage placed him at hotels across southern France in the days following the murders. Then, he vanished without a trace. Despite one of the largest manhunts in French history, no confirmed sightings have ever placed him since. Rumors persist that he fled to a monastery or committed suicide in the wilderness. The motive remains murky. Some believe Xavier was drowning in debt and killed his family out of desperation, leaving behind letters that suggested a religious mission. Others suspect a deeper psychological break. Over the years, false sightings and dead-end tips have only deepened the mystery. To this day, the case remains open, and Xavier is one of Europe's most wanted fugitives. The tragedy has become one of France's darkest modern crime stories, and a haunting tale of a father who disappeared into thin air after destroying his entire family. The Monster of Florence, Italy, 1968 to 1985. Between 1968 and 1985, a series of brutal double murders rocked the countryside of Florence, Italy. Each involved young couples attacked while in parked cars, often followed by post-mortem mutilation. The press dubbed the killer Il Mostro di Firenze, the Monster of Florence. The pattern was so specific and disturbing that the case became one of the most extensive in Italian criminal history. At least 16 people were murdered in total, often with a .22 caliber pistol. Police initially suspected a lone killer, but over time, theories evolved to suggest multiple perpetrators or even a satanic cult. Several people were arrested, including Pietro Pacciani, a farmer with a criminal record, but his conviction was later overturned, and doubts about his guilt persist. The case inspired comparisons to the Zodiac and Jack the Ripper. Investigators fumbled with evidence, lost files, and faced political pressure, all of which contributed to a fractured and confusing investigation. Journalists and authors who explored the case were even accused of obstructing justice. Though decades have passed, the Monster of Florence remains unidentified. The case's sheer brutality and scale, combined with its proximity to such a historic city, have made it one of the most chilling unsolved crimes in European history. The Keddy Cabin Murders, USA, 1981. In a remote cabin in Keddy, California, the Sharp family experienced a night of unimaginable terror. On April 11, 1981, Sue Sharp, her son John, and his friend Dinah Wingate were found viciously murdered, bound with electrical tape, stabbed, and beaten. Sue's daughter Tina was missing. Her remains were found years later, miles away, adding another layer of horror to the case. Despite clear signs of struggle and evidence suggesting more than one killer, no arrests were made. Two main suspects, including a man who lived nearby and had a history of violence, were interviewed but never charged. Disturbingly, a hammer, believed to be the murder weapon, was found in a nearby pond decades later and matched the crime scene description. In 2016, new evidence reignited interest in the case. Investigators revealed that a cover-up may have occurred and that the initial investigation was deeply flawed. It's now believed that the killers were known to the family and possibly protected by local law enforcement. Even with renewed efforts, the Keddy Cabin murders remain unsolved. The case continues to grip true crime communities with its blend of violence, potential corruption, and lost innocence in a small town. What binds these 10 crimes together is not just the brutality or mystery, it's the enduring absence of answers. Decades, and sometimes even centuries later, families still wait for closure, and communities are left scarred by what was done in their midst. In many of these cases, investigators did all they could with the tools available at the time, but some questions may never be answered. And perhaps that's what makes these stories so haunting. They live on because they were never resolved. Each of these cases stands as a chilling reminder that evil can walk among us, unseen and unpunished. The frustration of knowing that a killer was never caught, that justice was never served, keeps the wounds open. Technology has advanced, and cold cases are being reopened with new hope. But for these crimes, time has done little to bring peace. As viewers and storytellers, we must remember that behind every unsolved crime is a human life taken and loved ones left behind. The fascination with mystery should never overshadow the tragedy. And maybe, just maybe, one day someone watching this will hold the key to unlocking one of these dark puzzles. Until then, these stories remain open and disturbingly real.